What is going on, y'all? KM Best here, and I just got off of a session in which I had a 66% win rate over nearly 60 games with Darkhawk Phoenix Force. This is the list, and I consider it a bit of a modern-day iteration of the Goon Knight deck. Now, many remember the Goon Knight deck as a Moon Knight Darkhawk deck that used discards in order to prevent your opponent from putting cards onto the board in a powerful and meaningful way. It also looked to use cards like the Hood and turn them into an advantage with Viper. This deck does much the same thing, but in a different and a little bit more roundabout, but perhaps more damaging way. Instead of discarding cards from your opponent's hand, we're just saying they don't get to draw them. By using the Grandmaster and Misery to double up on the cards that put rocks into our opponent's deck, put demons into our hand, and put Widow's Bites into our opponent's hand, we are able to prevent multiple draws per game. Now, for those who have been watching and playing for a while, you're familiar with how dangerous it is when multiple Black Widow triggers start happening in one game. That's actually why she got nerfed from 2 energy to 3 energy, because you could very easily beast Black Widow, and then suddenly once you get into the realm of taking away multiple draws per game while still outputting points, that's a very dangerous thing. And that's what this deck is really trying to do. You have a lot of different ways to prevent your opponent's cards from mattering, and the main ways in which you do that are just making sure they don't draw any cards that matter. You also have a surprising amount of points when you can repeat the on reveal ability of the Hood. Now, this deck is relatively light on points. It is similar to Goon Knight in that respect. But because your plan of preventing your opponents from drawing works a bit better with Darkhawk than the original Goon Knight plan of discarding, and because you have this ability to get 1, 2, 3 even extra triggers out of a Hood, you can then suddenly have these point explosions on the final few turns of the game that can catch people off guard in a really unpredictable way. Let's get started by talking about the cards in the deck, what each of them are meant to do, and how to play each of the deck's various different game plans. The Hood is an immensely powerful card if you're able to negate the downside and trigger it multiple times. This is a lesson that we've learned from bounce decks all throughout the existence of Marvel Snap. This deck is looking to do the same thing, using the Hood with the Grandmaster and Misery to achieve a bounce-like output of demons. That's the baseline of what this deck is trying to do in terms of point output in games where you aren't able to get to a Darkhawk. The only other things you have for serious point output in those situations are like getting a Cassandra Nova, miserying the Cassandra Nova, then bringing it back with a Phoenix Force. Other than that, most of your power is demons and Darkhawk. Echo is here out of respect to the card Cosmo. Our deck is fairly telegraphed, and once we start stacking up a lane, it becomes very obvious that we're planning to play Misery on it, and anyone who can play Cosmo can blow us out when we try to do that. Echo is there to prevent that from happening. You can't get Cosmo'd if you play Echo on turn 2. That's pretty much what her job is here. For those who don't have Echo, the replacement is usually going to be Spider Ham, an additional way of making sure that your opponent's resources are under stress. If you do that, it is a little bit like going in unprepared for the biggest counter in the game, which is anyone playing Cosmo because of how telegraphed your deck actually is, and because of how good Cosmo can be against what your deck is trying to do. Obviously, if you fill up a lane and Misery it and they Cosmo you, you're probably losing that game because that Cosmo's gonna flip up before the Misery, because one of the things you're trying to copy with the Misery is probably a negative 3 power Hood. This is a way of avoiding all those priority battles, avoiding wondering about that kind of stuff, and getting rid of some of the free losses that this deck has. Korg is your one drop that you like repeating the effect of, but not as much as you like repeating the effect of some other things. That means that you have to actually think about where you want your Korg to be, because a lot of the time you have to plan out, all right, do I want my Korg to go in the Misery lane, or is my space at a premium such that I would rather it be Echo and a Hood and a Black Widow, right? That's a much better Misery lane than if you replaced any of those cards with a Korg, because you need the Echo to protect you from Cosmo. So you end up with the Korg being a good card, but sometimes superfluous to what you're actually trying to do with the deck. Of course, a lot of the time he's very fine to play out, but the other thing you want to keep in mind with him is like when you're killing stuff off with Misery, what are you planning to revive with Phoenix Force? It can be very easy to like play this deck and just sort of like face up and just like play all the cards and play it like very formulaically, and that will cost you value if you are not planning ahead. Speaking of cards that you're kind of usually excited to get dead so you can bring back with a Phoenix Force, Nico has a couple of really unique interactions with her. So first of all, these apply to mostly Phoenix Force, but they also will apply to the Grandmaster. The way it works is if you have a Nico ability, it will be triggered by reviving with Phoenix Force. Meaning, if Nico was played at X2 and then is revived on a Phoenix Force, the Phoenix Force will double. It will get that X2 in addition to Nico's power, right? So that's one of the good things. The bad thing, if Nico dies and she was turn something into a demon or destroy and draw 2, that will hit the Phoenix Force. Your Phoenix Force will just become a demon. Your Grandmaster will just become a demon. The way that works is not the world's most intuitive thing, but once you know how it works, you can actually really start to manipulate it and do good things with it. So keep in mind, when you bring back Nico on a Phoenix Force, her ability will target herself. Whether that's +2 power, destroy, draw 2, all of them will target herself. If you Grandmaster a Nico, the abilities will target the Grandmaster. So for example, if you have a Nico that turns stuff into demons, you Grandmaster that Nico to the middle, the Grandmaster will turn into a demon. Shadow King is one of the most relevant tech cards in the game right now. I really can't think of anything I'd rather run than this card in this context. Just a very strong card that is able to deal with a lot of major threats. Downside, of course, is you actually have a non-zero amount of green power between Phoenix Force reviving stuff, Nico doubling and adding power, and of course Cassandra Nova. It's not the easiest card in the world to play, and it is one of the cards that will require you to be planning ahead. Grandmaster does all sorts of messed up stuff. The basic line for getting multiple hand removal spells going is you play something like Black Widow into Misery the Black Widow, into Revive the Black Widow off of Phoenix Force. They just don't draw cards for like the last 3 turns of the game. But you can also do stuff like that with the Grandmaster. You can also use the Grandmaster to trigger Nico's again if you need that. That demon tech is actually a pretty useful one. Turning the Grandmaster into a demon is some real stuff a decent amount of the time. You also get to use this card in order to repeat the honor reveals of things like Cassandra Nova some of the time. Again, not always the greatest in the world. Generally, your Misery Phoenix Force game plans are a little bit better, but the Grandmaster is just a good card in this deck. Cassandra Nova is a card that sort of goes along with the Darkhawk Rock package, and it's actually kind of at its best here. One of the main things that this deck has that's just like gets for free is you just win a lot of games against Arishem because of this card and because of Darkhawk and all that stuff, right? And so you end up being in a similar position to the old Goon Knight decks, just kind of like a hard counter to Arishem because of what you're doing. You're denying them resources and you're capitalizing on their gigantic deck size. This card also, though, is just one of your few ways to like actually put out something that is bigger than 6 power. Because if you're not going to be, like, that matters a decent amount, right? Because you have just Darkhawk if you want something that goes really, really tall. And then the rest of the time you kind of work in, you know, multiples of 6, right? You have demons coming out of there. You have Nico turning stuff into demons. You don't actually really have a lot of big bodies. And this is a card that can give you a big body. I've won games by destroying Cassandra Nova with a Misery and then bringing her back on a Phoenix Force so she ends up being just the world's largest vision moving around and helping me win. That's totally viable too. Black Widow is sort of what this deck is really trying to abuse. This deck is a deck that wants to do messed up Black Widow stuff. That's basically the headline of what this deck is trying to do. You want to play a Black Widow into a Misery. You want to revive the Black Widow on a Phoenix Force. That is a turn 3, turn 4, they don't draw. Turn 5, they don't draw. Turn 6, they don't draw. They have to beat you not drawing cards for 3 turns. You are also a Darkhawk deck. Some of the time you are also doing things like getting a hood back or playing a hood and then miserying the hood. And then you just end up doing all of this ridiculous power output stuff while they are sitting there staring at an endless barrage of Widow's Bites. It's a very powerful strategy, and she is, to me, the linchpin of this archetype. Rock Slide is like pretty solid. Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with doubling a Rock Slide with Misery. You're happy to do that. It's just worse than doing the Black Widow stuff, right? The only real upside to doing the Rock Slide stuff is when you need your Darkhawk to be like 25 power, which isn't very often. You don't often need to be putting, 4 rocks in the deck versus 2. It's really more just going to be like worse Black Widow most of the time. But you're happy to be a worse Black Widow gamer because you are trying to stop your opponent from actually drawing relevant cards. And even if they only draw 1 rock, you're still effectively blanking a draw. And so you're really just trying to make sure that happens. So Rock Slide, a little bit worse than actual Black Widow, I think, but still a valid replacement for those draws when you don't actually have the Black Widow. I know a lot of people are going to be wondering what the hell Phoenix Force is for, but basically all of this deck is built around repeating on reveals and blowing stuff up with Misery. This means that Phoenix Force is going to fall well into that game plan because it'll bring back the stuff you got blown up with Misery. I do have one piece of special tech here though. What you can do with Phoenix Force if you haven't drawn Misery is put it into a lane that you want to Misery, and then if you draw it the next turn, you will be able to Misery that lane. The things in that lane will die. It will target the Phoenix Force, but in repeating the Phoenix Force on reveal, the Phoenix Force will transform into a different card, and then it will not die. So for example, let's say you have Black Widow, Phoenix Force in a lane, you Misery that lane, you get back, first the Black Widow triggers, then she dies. Then you get back a Black Widow on the Phoenix Force trigger, so you have an 8 power Phoenix Force, another Black Widow trigger, and that will not die. It will stay there. So you'll effectively just have your little vision that does the Black Widow thing, and it will not die to the Misery proc. This is because it has fully transformed into Black Widow. When Misery looks to kill off Phoenix Force, it doesn't see a Phoenix Force anymore because Phoenix Force no longer exists. It has become Black Widow. That interaction is pretty cool, and I think most Phoenix Force interactions in this deck are pretty cool. The real thing with Phoenix Force is, do you want to use it to double up power with something like a Nico, or do you want to use it to disrupt your opponent? Wow, just clobbered the mic there, I apologize. Do you want to use it to disrupt your opponent like with Rock Slide or with Black Widow? Using it one way or the other does mean that you're going to have to plan out what your Misery lanes are actually going to be, because sometimes you can be put in a situation where you have a Misery lane that is the Hood and Black Widow. You Misery that lane, obviously, it's very good, but then when you revive the Phoenix Force, you get the one you didn't want, and that's not always a great sign. I'm not going to say this deck doesn't function when you don't draw Misery, but it honestly is a lot worse. Everything about this deck is built to facilitate the Misery part of this, and I think that is a, it's tough, right? Like, when you play a deck that is so built around having this card on turn 4, and then you don't have it on turn 4, you're usually just kind of limping in. But the upside that this card brings to you is so massive. Just absolutely bonkers output, multiple Black Widows, multiple Hoods. When your opponent is not interacting with you in a meaningful way, and you can just prevent them from drawing cards for like 2 or 3 turns while making demons, it's just hard to lose. Darkhawk is really big. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for sitting through that. I hope you learned a couple of technical details about how to play this list. I felt like as I eased into it that I was not snapping aggressively enough, and that you can aggressively snap your Black Widow draws against most stuff. It felt hard to do because of the weakness to Cosmo, and so by the time I was actually doing stuff, it felt like I couldn't snap. But I will say that this deck felt quite powerful, a genuinely good part of this metagame, and perhaps the best Misery deck in the entire game, as she is looking to potentially be buffed in the next OTA. I believe they announced that she'd be going to 4-8. When that happens, this is the kind of deck we'll probably want to investigate. This is a powerful disruptive deck that I think does what Goon Knight was trying to do, but just far better. And if you're interested in stopping your opponent from having fun, this is a really interesting and dynamic deck if that is your goal. I consider it one of the higher, like, it's not like the tier 1 deck in this metagame, but it can beat them and it's competitive with them. I would say it's a pretty solid to good deck, and I've been really impressed with it. All right, y'all, let's jump in to the gameplay. Hello, Senor Nathan. Are we vaulting or laddering? Looking like laddering right now. Ooh, I'm so torn. I think we just go for this one. We PF back another demon. That's 20. Scorpion. Love it. High Evo. Love it. Okay, we're good. We flipped the middle. We flipped the middle on the Darkest of Hawks. That was a lot of demons. Ongoing effects are disabled here? Oh my god. Oh, double ongoing effects are disabled here. Let's go. Now, I don't play any tech to make that armor busted or anything like that. But, you know. Oh, there's Shuri. See, I'm torn. I feel like I should do this, then go Hood Misery. But I don't know. I think I'm just going to try this one. Just going to get another Widow's Bite in there. Whoa, Shuri transforming that card? Ebony Maw? They can't play there? Holy shit. Oh, it's off. They're not drawing that Ebony Maw at the very least. And then I have a Darkhawk and a Hood and a movable Phoenix Force. Okay, they play a Widow's Bite, which turns into another Yellow Jacket. Typhoid is on zeros. We Hood, we PF, prevent another draw, hopefully. Okay, it was Korg instead. If that was Black Widow, I feel really good about what happened here. At not Black Widow, I don't feel amazing, but I guess we get away with it. Is this just like good outside hot location yesterday? I think so. Human Torch. Dude, this Valkyrie might be about to go insane. I wonder what they Mirage of mine. Glad I got the demon out. I got my cast. All right. Web. Strange the cast over to there. All right. Widow's Bite. Then here's another Widow's Bite. So the Hawk is 13. If we go for a Nova here, it's very compelling to me. It's just sending 12 to the middle. Where'd they get the energy for that shit? Titan? Ah, I see. Am I getting Heimdalled? This feels like a Heimdall. Feels like my doll might be getting Heimed here. Let's say it's a Heimdall. What am I meant to do? There's too many options here, I feel like. Okay, they beefed it. I just went for the points play, and it worked out. I don't know what that is, Velimir. I just simply don't know what that is. It's a ban? I see. Better Lover should be a tag team trying to be Golden Lover. Yeah, like that's sort of what I felt. I was like, oh, it's a wrestling thing. I was like, oh, it's got to be a wrestling thing, right? Oh, geez. This seems super losable. This seems super losable. I whiffed my Echo on their Sarah, man. Sad. I mean, we have put 3 rocks in their deck. We can only hope that good things are happening because of us, or because of that. I expect a Shadow King on the Cassandra Nova lane, which is why I'm putting this stuff here. I'm not sure I'm supposed to expect a Killmonger, because I think if they had a Killmonger earlier in the game, they would have played it to blow up my dudes. Okay, I did get the Shadow King read correct. Yep. Correct read on the Shadow King there. That was just pretty much like what nothing to it. That's a totally different interaction. I'm Corgan. Grandmaster doesn't kill Phoenix Force if Phoenix Force is reviving something, but it will kill it if it's not like specifically that card. I'm sorry that's like confusing, but it's just how it works. I can bring back an Echo off this Phoenix Force. Bro, my echo, what the fuck? You're gonna pop off. Is disrupting them what's worth doing here? Cosmo is simply not real. Just a not real card. Okay. I guess we win. All right. I mean, that's actually just crazy that their final turn play was literally a rock. It is so painful. Last shark. I would strike out Eliath on 3 pitches. Slider outside. Feels like he's drowning. Curveball in the dirt. Of course he's chasing it. Your priority sucked. Reveal yourself. And bang. 97. Inside corner. You're out. You were always out. You've been out since the day you were released. Ah. Well, that's actually kind of funny. Oh, there's kind of a lot we can do here, actually. I do think I want to do this. Here's my question, though. Nah, I think I just gotta try for it. Do I want to do it on the Hood, or do I want to do it on Black Widow, actually? Black Widow is kind of fascinating if they never draw cards ever again. So they once again do not draw cards here. I'm worried they like Magneto the left or something. What if we just take the 50-50 here? Okay, I think we always win now. It's not even a 50-50 anymore. We just always win. Either that goes mid and we win, or yeah. We went beast mode. We went beast mode. Why did the deck switch from goo? Arisham deck. Cool. Holy shit. That's bonkers. They're sniping. Oh, they're not sniping. I guess? I don't know. Snap Judgments has a list, bro, of top players saying discard is still meh. Okay, this shit pisses me off. I am a top player. Snap Judgments is not a top player. Why would you believe? I don't understand. I don't understand what you're getting at here. But I don't think that you're making the case you think you're making. I am literally ranked 14 in the world. I'm telling you, it was fine. I'm telling you that right now. It was fine. This is a demon here. Turns that into a demon. I'll take your word on it. Like, both of those cards are quite fine. Ugh. That's horrifying. God damn. Here's the play. Oh my god! They got a Valentina Agatha and they still almost beat my shit. Oh my god. They still almost... What the fuck? No, I think we did it right. I think we did things mostly right there. Cosmo. Okay. They snap me? Probably because they have a loot cage. I don't get it, but I'm gonna do this. What are they doing? I don't know. But what I do know is this Phoenix Force is about to bring back the biggest dude of all time. Okay,